Maybe you've heard in the news that more and more people are cutting themselves, burning themselves, or inflicting self-harm. Now, the researchers call this non-suicidal self-injury, or NSSI. Now, we're going to look at the research on this. We're also going to talk about some things you can potentially do to help yourself if you struggle with these desires and these actions, what you can do to replace them with something healthy. And we will also talk about some potential things that may just simply make you a healthier, happier person. Hey everybody, Chad Cruiser here with Health and Homestead. And just in case you don't know us, here at Health and Homestead, we talk about science-backed, evidence-based research looking at health. Physical health, mental health, emotional health. We also talk about homesteading. We talk about, what it's like to live in the country and go back to the simpler, happier ways of living. So if you want to know more about this, hit the subscribe button and hit the notifications bell so you don't miss anything. So I want to start off talking about some of the history of cutting and self-inflicted pain. Now, this is not something new. The DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual on Mental Disorders, says that, a few years ago they said, this is a relatively new disorder, which it may be in that it's being named, but in reality it is not new. It goes back thousands of years. I look back through the history of it to the ancient Canaanites. The ancient Canaanites, 2,900 years ago, we have evidence that those who were followers of the Canaanite god Baal would actually cut themselves or do self-inflicted harm. So this is nothing new. And then I thought back on what the Bible says back in Mark chapter 5. There was a man there, and Jesus came into the area of the Gadarenes. As he came in, this man came to him, and notice what it says. And always night and day he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. So it's really totally clear that this issue has gone on for millennia. This is really nothing new. Now, it may have been a newly named disorder, but this has been going on for thousands of years. Sometimes it's done in religious rituals, and sometimes it's simply self-induced pain. But what is the cause? Now, researchers actually wondered. They were thinking, is there something different about these people? That these people somehow gain pleasure out of pain. And so some research was actually conducted to test comparing those who did actually do this self-inflicted pain versus those who really don't do that. And the results are actually quite interesting. So what the researchers did is they did something called the cold pressor test. Now, this test has been used for some time. And the way it works is this. They take a bucket or a vat of ice cold water, and they have people put their arms in it for a time. And initially, it's simply cold. But over time, what happens? It begins to cause physical suffering. It actually causes straight up pain. And they've done this for years, and it's a research-based method to actually induce stress and pain. And in this particular study, what they did is they took people who did some form of self-inflicted pain, like cutting or burning, and then they compared them with a group who did not do that. And what did they find? What Joseph Franklin, a Harvard researcher, and his colleagues discovered was that people who were self-injurers would actually, after putting the arm in the painfully cold water for a time, after taking it out, they would actually feel better than baseline levels. So you can imagine if something makes you feel better, you can understand why people would do it. Now, what they discovered secondarily was quite fascinating. That people who were not self-injurers, after they took the test, after they put their arm in the freezing cold water and they pulled it out, that they actually felt better too. So what they discovered was that this strange scientific test, which is actually, by the way, a form of what is called hydrotherapy, although they don't refer to it as that, it actually has physiological and psychological benefits. Now, this might have been somewhat fascinating to discover to Franklin and the other researchers, but this actually reminded me of a study that I have seen in the past, and this was back in 2008, and this is from the Journal of Medical Hypotheses, and notice the title of this study is called Adapted Cold Shower as potential treatment for depression. Now, what a strange thought. An adaptive cold treatment shower. So meaning this is something that you could do on your own that could potentially make you happier. Now, this is from the Journal of Medical Hypotheses, and this is more just kind of like a preliminary study, but the good thing is this isn't the only study that's been done on this, so we do have evidence. And what is the evidence? The evidence is that taking what's called an adaptive cold shower or hydrotherapy or a contrast shower, as it's always been called for years anyway, that doing this, what that simply is you take a warm shower, maybe a nice comfortable hot shower, not burning yourself, but a standard shower, and then you begin to adapt the temperature down to a cold shower. Now in this case it was 68 degrees, but I do the old-fashioned way. I let the water get as cold as it can possibly get. And what they found in this preliminary study was that sure enough, it had beneficial psychological effects on the individuals who did it, just like the people who put their arm in the cold water. And you could see if you struggled with cutting, meaning that you've gotten used to this painful experience bringing you to pleasure. Do you enjoy cold showers? I don't. I don't enjoy it at all. But what they found is taking this cold shower for 2 to 3 minutes, that it would potentially cause a positive effect on the mind and the levels of happiness, lowering levels of depressive symptoms. So you get the idea. So someone who's already used to inflicting pain on themselves, like cutting for instance, now cutting has negative side effects, but when it comes to this adaptive shower, adaptive cold shower, or what is called a contrast shower, it actually just has simply positive benefits, including boosting immune function. That's, from other information other than this study, but this is great news. So you can actually find something that is kind of painful, taking a cold shower, don't hurt yourself, but taking a cold shower can actually cause some of the very same benefits that you would get out of cutting yourself. Now, keep in mind, cutting has terrible side effects, but you could get the good side effects with a good treatment. So simply doing this cold shower, but that's not it. We have more research, more things that we can actually talk about. Now, I don't want to give you the idea that I think that taking a cold shower, a contrast shower, would actually just get rid of all your problems psychologically. Not at all. It's more of a band-aid. It is something that does work. It does increase potentially levels of happiness, lowers levels of depression, and so, but it doesn't actually deal with the underlying issues. And we're going to talk about some of those underlying issues in a minute, but it can be something that you could regularly do, just like a cutter would regularly inflict self-harm. Now they can actually inflict something beneficial to not only their mental health, but to even their physical health by enhancing their immune function in the process. Now, another physiological thing you can do to lower your levels of depression so that you have a happier mental state is exercising, what I'm doing right now, right? I'm walking up hills, I'm getting cardiovascular exercise. Actually, I love doing these videos where I walk outside because I love exercise, and rather than standing around to do a video, I can actually walk. And but let's get to the research. So they did a study comparing the depression medication Zoloft, giving that to depressed patients versus having them take no depression medication and simply having them exercise. And in this particular test, then they had a third group who would do the exercise and take the Zoloft. And what they discovered is that those who simply exercised did the best out of all three groups. So one of the best things that you can do, and think about it, if you're a cutter, you're used to self-inflicted pain. And so getting exercise, like for instance, I enjoy running. Actually, I don't enjoy running, but I enjoy running. Well, that's kind of contradictory. What I mean is this, I don't enjoy necessarily the run itself. I enjoy how I feel after. So the cold therapy, the exercise seems to increase our beta endorphins, these endorphins in our bodies, thus making us happier. So getting exercise, which is a form of self-inflicted pain, by the way, and then receiving the benefit from it is one of the best things you can do to give you a healthier, happier state of mind. Now, this next study is absolutely fascinating. It's actually been replicated. This is the second one in the American Journal of Public Health. And you notice here, this on the left side is basically the level of happiness or life satisfaction. On the from left to right is how many servings of fruits and vegetables that you consume a day. And notice what they discovered. If you eat 0 fruits or vegetables in a day, you have statistically the lowest level of happiness that you as an individual would have. But if you have 1, you become statistically a tiny bit happier. But notice 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 servings of fruits or vegetables. And what they discovered was, what's really amazing about this research is that it didn't only make them happier that day. Eating 8 servings of fruits or vegetables would actually enhance their happiness the next day. So you can decide how happy you're going to be tomorrow in part by choosing how many servings of fruits or vegetables that you consume in a day. This may have in part to do with inflammation, just giving your body the right neurochemicals that it needs. There's all kinds of factors, probably not just one simple factor on why it's so beneficial. Another factor for happiness and mental health is actually sleep. How much sleep do you get? But really not even just how much sleep do you get. When do you get to sleep? Now, you need probably somewhere between 8 to 9 hours, maybe 7 to 9 hours as you get older. But young people, 8 to 9 hours would be significantly better. And the real issue actually can be, when do you get that sleep? Not just, did you get it? You know, you go to bed at 12 o'clock and wake up at, 8 or 9 and you say, hey, I got plenty of sleep. But that is not the same thing. You will actually be statistically happier, in general anyway, if you get to bed closer to 9 o'clock. If you really struggle with these things, you struggle with depression, anxiety, these kind of things, try going to bed night after night at 9 o'clock. Do this for 2 weeks, a month, and you see what begins to happen. In general, you will find a real change begin to take place in your life. And so the stressors of life like tripping over tree stumps and so forth, the stressors of life, they're going to come either way. But what you find is, if you're in a healthy state of mind, if you're actually not necessarily in a healthy state of mind, but a healthy state of body, when your body functions properly, you're just a happier person. So try this out. Try this one simple thing. This is also very beneficial. 2 more things to go. Number 1 is that, what are you doing with your mind? Where are you putting your mind? What are you focusing your mind upon? And one of the most common things that people are focusing their minds on today is social media. They're looking at beautiful people that are so beautiful because they have incredible filters that distort their face and make them incredibly beautiful. And they wish, oh, if I only could look like that, when most of these people don't even actually look the way that they look in their pictures, or many times anyway. And so people are looking at things, they're comparing themselves to other people. And this often brings stress, or people being mean to them online, bullying and so forth. And so these things cause serious stressors. I just talked with a young lady a few days ago, and she shared that she had been on, I think it was Instagram since she was in 6th grade, and she just cut it out a week ago. She literally just kind of erased it, and she said, I had a great week last week. And one of the things is you think, oh, I'm going to find happiness in these places, but we know that Instagram and Snapchat are 2 of the social media platforms that increase depression the most. Now, I haven't seen any new studies on TikTok. Time will tell with TikTok. We'll probably find the same thing there. But what I'm simply sharing is, if you really struggle with social media, try cutting it out of your life. See what happens. I know many people feel like that would be an impossibility, but it might simply change your life. On this issue of what are you focusing your mind on, this is the last thing. The last thing is simply this. You may have heard the quotation, never forget that thoughts work out actions. Repeated actions form habits, and habits form character. They form who we are. Many times people try to change negative characteristics, they try to change their bad habits, and so they try to change their actions, but the actions don't stem from themselves. The actions come from the thoughts. Never forget that thoughts work out actions. Repeated actions form habits, and habits form character. So what are we thinking about? What are we focusing our mind on? We know that often, even in psychological studies, that often what we find is that people who have a stronger religious connection are actually happier people. And we have an opportunity. I think of the man there in Mark chapter 5 who had been cutting himself, and then he met Jesus. And after meeting Jesus, it actually says there, he was the man that was always night and day in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. But then you see that beautiful word there, but. When he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshiped him. Notice that this man who had been a self-injurer. He was a cutter. That this man, after he came face to face with Jesus, after his worship experience with Jesus, his mind began to change. His life began to change from the power that Jesus had in his life that he gave to this man, setting him free from these burdens that he had suffered with. So much so that he went and shared with people around him, and other people's lives were changed. And the very same thing could happen in your life. That as you implement some of the healing principles that we have been given in this world, that we've actually been given by God, as we implement some of the healing principles that we've been given and actually maybe even begin to connect our lives to Jesus, that we can find victory over the, self-abuse, the self-injury, the cutting, the burning, these kind of things. And we can find things that are actually healthy, that give us benefits. We can get the good sleep. We can, get the healthy food and the exercise. Or if we need to, we can get these contrast showers where we take a cold shower. All these different things. And as we connect with Jesus, he can cause you to be healed, number one. And number two, just like this man who had been a cutter in the Bible, who went and shared with others what had happened in his life, the same thing can happen in your life, that you could be a force for good and you can help change lives around you. Now, if you like this video, hit the subscribe button. God bless and have a fantastic day.